Cavalier faithful, welcome back into the Cleveland Pulse YouTube channel. It's Cavs Encapsulated, episode 7. And I want to kind of start off with some, on a right note this episode. I'm sure there's going to be some, lamenting of negativity, which I'll probably, contribute with. But I just want to start off this episode 7, young Cavalier season, 20 games in. And I put this out a little bit earlier just because I was doing some research for this episode. And I kind of want to hear some, general comments about this because I think the consensus bright spot of this year's team so far, which is kind of hard to believe, is Max Strus. So I just want to hear your guys' thoughts here. I put out, that he's leading the NBA in catch and shoot threes made this season, 54 threes that were catch and shoot variety. Now, I think if you talk to a lot of people, they might say, well, Donovan's not playing very well. DG can't play well with Donovan. Maybe people think Mobley hasn't, taken the leap they want him to. I think it's pretty common and clear that everybody has enjoyed the acquisition of Max Strus, even though there might have been some, reservations with him in the offseason. Logan, what have you seen from him? And just to start us off here on a good note, so it doesn't sound like we're complaining the entirety of the episode, I want to hear your thoughts about how Max Strus has played in the wine and gold.
Well, to me, I was never down on the acquisition of Max Strus. And I don't think people were down, but people thought, are we overpaying him? Is he just a Miami Heat player? Justin, those sunglasses are ridiculous. Continuing. I think you're muted, Justin.
I am. I'm letting you make your point. They're not going anywhere, though.
Try to make your point, Logan. I was never down on it. Obviously, people were a little worried about the price tag, worried about the Miami Heat type of culture that maybe didn't translate over to the Cavaliers. But to me, more than his shooting, more than his shooting. Let's just start there. More than his shooting, it's his attitude. He has totally flipped the script in the way this team approaches game to game. I'm not talking like defense or offense specifically. I'm talking effort level. I'm talking about fighting over screens. I'm talking about when you foul somebody hard. I honestly didn't know he was like that. I didn't know that he had this intensity about him as much as I did. I always knew with Max Strus that we're getting kind of like a Klay Thompson light in the regards that he's always going to be moving, always going to keep moving. Obviously, maybe not the Klay Thompson defensive monster that he was before the injury, but I really am impressed with Max Strus. He's provided far more than I ever thought I could get from him. Like I said, we talked about it last week with our 3 things that make a good team. He brings all 3, and I know one of those 3 is coaching. I would even say he can coach okay out there. He communicates well with his teammates. He is a person that shows attitude. And, to me, Max Strus is far and away the best acquisition we've had, outside of someone like Donovan Mitchell since LeBron left. And maybe that's kind of bold, but that's kind of where I stand.
I was going to ask that as a follow-up question, but then I was like, well, you kind of have to go through, some of our former moves in recent history that were pretty big, but I'm
not talking trades. I'm not talking trades. I'm talking pure pickups,
pure additions. I actually kind of agree. And sure, is it only, 20, 25 games into the season? But as far as the consistency, and I just think he's been the player this year that has always been the same or close to the same. He's had a couple of games where, maybe he hasn't had a huge offensive impact. I think that's going to happen with his style of play, but he's been out there. He's been healthy. He's been somebody who could knock down the 3. I think he's a clear-cut upgrade over some of the personnel that we had last year, which is always a huge addition, looks good for the optics. So I've been pleasantly surprised with Max Strus. Justin, do you feel the same? Is he your, kind of like your quarter season MVP so far for the roster?
Well, you see here, Jeff, I think it's easily the most important question to be asked today, and especially because we're going to be pretty much on the downswing here. But
we're going to the down.
Max Strus, for me, easily the best player that we've had. Most consistent. Your best availability is or your best
ability is your availability.
Yeah, there you go, Logan. Thanks for that one. Listen, the shades don't do much for my. And out of my ear. Holy Lord. Okay. Anyways, getting back to the point. Usually you look at Strus and you look from Donovan, Darius, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen. I think, you look at the starting 5, he's been the best player easily. He's contributed the most. I think his game has been exactly what we brought him in for. And you'd like to see, the guys around him kind of respond just with, especially what Logan said, like the mentality he kind of goes into every game, I just think is the same. I don't think he gets too high. I don't think he gets too low. He's had poor shooting nights, and I don't think that that's long term affected him, in a streak kind of way or whatnot. But I think that the offense has really just kind of been geared around what he brings and what a lot of these other guys have been brought in to do. And so we haven't really seen the full package yet, but I've been pleasantly surprised. I know Jeff and I were the two guys who were very skeptical about bringing in a Miami Heat guy, especially not just a three-point shooter, but a Miami Heat cultured guy, especially into, where he went or where he came from in terms of coaching with Eric Spoelstra to where he is now with JB. And, I think that obviously his game is very well respected here and very much needed here. The question moving forward is, once guys like Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell get back on track, and even for a matter of, going out there, Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, does Max, lose his, kind of way in the light of those guys? I don't think so. I think that his catch and shoot, that stat that Jeff put up at the beginning, is huge. And it's especially just for him, what he's going to be doing in a playoff game, in a regular season game. Honestly, he's just kind of been the perfect slotted piece that we've added. Now, you can go back and, like Logan said, the price tag might have been a little bit much at the time. I think there was a clear deviation from Naz Reid to Max Strus, but I'm not upset with it, to be honest with you. I've enjoyed what Max Strus has brought to this team and will continue to do so, hopefully.
And I think that this is just, even more to the point, we haven't even really seen his, quote unquote intangibles yet, because just even from last year, I mean, he has more postseason experience than a majority of the guys on the roster, even the likes of Donovan Mitchell. Strus has been to an NBA Finals, has played minutes, didn't necessarily play at the level he probably wanted to, but was still there, could probably relay to some of the younger guys on the roster about what it's like, what to expect, how to handle it, how to go about your business. Between him and I think the only other person really is Tristan Thompson, as far as this roster having a whole lot of playoff, deep run experience. So I think he's played an interesting role, which is also more credit to him, and which I think is actually one of the most impressive parts of what he's doing so far, is that he is kind of like this middle of the road piece, like small forward that we acquired him for. Obviously, we wanted him to play this role, but he's not really. He's in the middle. He's not like one of our small guards, and he's not one of our bigs, obviously. So I think that he's had to kind of maybe go out of his way to get in our offense the most. That could be just an assumption. That could just be something I'm reading into, but
he's probably the closest thing that you get to an all-around player. I think right now, you think about his rebounding game is super underrated.
Right.
I think that's been one of those things where the whole off season and still into this season, and I'm sure we'll continue to talk about it, but rebounding was a huge problem outside of Jared Allen and Evan Mobley last year, especially after you dropped Kevin Love. And I think, Strus has actively been, he's gotten, I think, at least 2 double-doubles now this season, and continues to rebound pretty well. He also passes the ball pretty great. I think his mentality is always shoot first. But he even knows that if he doesn't have a great shot, he's going to pass it up. He's going to look for the next best thing. And honestly, I think that's kind of what you wanted out of a guy like Karis LeVert. You wanted Karis to be able to come off the bench and be able to facilitate, be able to rebound, and be able to run the offense at the same time. Strus is like, and I don't want to take this conversation into this direction, but honestly, he'd be like the best 6-man player in the world, I think, if that was on a different team, his role. But I just think that overall, he's been all over the court. You've seen it on the offensive side, you've seen it on the defensive side, and you talk about the intangibles. All of it's been present, all of it's been advertised, and I think you've gotten more than what you've expected out of him so far.
Yeah, I mean, we just hope he obviously keeps it up. And I think it's, if you take another positive away from this, it seems like our existing issues right now, which we're going to get into, have really nothing to do with new acquisitions we made this offseason. Like, was that your concern bringing Strus into the offense? Maybe we want to play faster. How does Niang, get involved with the rotation? That doesn't really seem to be the problem right now. So I guess that could be a good thing, even though we do have other problems, but it still seems like the integration isn't bad. It kind of seems like people we had from previous, the previous season, the previous roster need to really get it going together. But with that being said, let's roll this over, and I'm going to go to you, Logan, because I think out of the three of us, you pull away from the games the most information. Like when you're watching it, you can extract what you're watching and process it the fastest between me, you, and Justin. Sometimes I got to go back, maybe look at the highlights and even look at what you do as far as, getting out shorts and, having our post-game recaps once we win, which if you haven't seen those, go over to the Cleveland Pulse on YouTube, go to our page and go to the short section. All great content coming from Logan. But I want to hear your opinion here. And I just want to show you two separate, screen shares here. I want you to look at the third quarter against the Detroit game, the most recent game that we won. We give up 34 points to Detroit. Flip over to the Blazers box score. That third quarter against Portland, give up 34 points to the Blazers. And just two kind of really bad second halves defensively, 34 and 29. And then this one was 34, 19, clamped down in that fourth quarter to end up winning the game. But is it where are the why does it seem like you go to halftime and you make negative adjustments? Like this Portland game that we lost, and I don't want to sit here and harp on the Portland game all night because it was what it was. We all saw it. It wasn't good. It was bad. But I mean, you give up 40 points in the first half. How do you come out of half and give up, almost that much in the singular quarter following halftime?
Well, and that's why it's so hard to take away from these games, right? Because the Cavs have been known to kind of lock down teams in the second half. They'll give up 70 points in the first half to the Lakers and overall play okay in the second half. Yeah, I mean, what I take away from those is the Pistons have been historically awful in the third quarter this year. For any Cavs fans who don't know, I was originally born around the Detroit area. So I originally actually grew up more of a Pistons fan, moved to Ohio when I was 8, never looked back. But still got a soft spot for the Pistons. So I do keep in track with them. I sing their praises, and I think I sing more praises than anybody else would of a 2-18 basketball team. But I see potential in them. I see pieces. I don't think they have – I clearly don't have the picture right. But what I did notice watching a lot of Pistons games this year when I'm not watching Cavs is they come out flat in the third quarter. And I think that is what holds this team back right now, at least over this past week, from having a 3-0 week and a 2-1 week. And really – we're not all that pleased with the 2-1 week. We should have gone 3-0. We should have gone 3-0. We should have smacked the Pistons. But you know what? That's the problem, right? The best teams, when they smell blood in the water, they put the team away.
Yep.
We don't do that all game long. We get involved in these games of runs, whether it's Max Strus knocking down 5 straight triples in the Brooklyn game, and then they go on the run with Cam Thomas down the stretch to make it close. Whether it's a game like the New York Knicks, or no, let's talk about the Pacers. First Pacers game, we're up 27-12 in the first quarter. Yes, we were shorthanded, but we get smacked the rest of the way. This team doesn't seem to have the flow of the game correct. The best teams, everyone talks about 2 years ago, around this time, how good the Cavs were. We were blowing teams out of the water. Not even close, not even a question. And, we just didn't have the personnel to be elite at that time. Now we have the personnel. We have to find that same energy. We have to find a consistency from quarter to quarter, from minute to minute. When you have a team down 10, you go make it 20. You don't make it 2. And that is what the Cavaliers have to figure out. I don't have an answer for you, Jeffrey. I don't know what happens in the halftime. I don't know why we come out flat in the third quarters. Clearly, our rotations still need work. CPJ, where have you gone? I'm looking around. I cannot find you. It's clearly just not adjusting to the adjustments. I think teams have always adjusted better to us. When we go on our run, they adjust and they get right back in it. When they go on their run, we roll out the same 5 that I saw when we went to commercial break, and we come back and it's the same 5. What did you learn? That team couldn't get that 5 on the floor, couldn't get it done for that stretch, and you leave them on the floor. I'm sorry. There's got to be shorter leashes with guys. If guys aren't getting it done, and I'm talking negatively, obviously we've been playing better basketball as of late, but I do think we are a long, long ways away from being a true championship contender. And it's because of reasons like this. When you see it, you need to extend that lead. It's got to stop. This this getting way ahead, bringing them back, or vice versa, getting or going way down and not having enough to come back at the end of the game. That'll cost you games. That'll cost you playoff positioning. I promise you, it will cost you playoff games.
Here's what is kind of bothering me. And we're 11-9. Let's just do like a quick record analysis breakdown. I'll probably tweet this out later. We're 11-9 through 20 games. You're 7-4 in the Eastern Conference. Okay, you've played good teams in the Eastern Conference. You're 5-6 at home. Huge 180 from last year. I don't even know if we had many more than 6 losses last year at home. Maybe we 9 or 10. Like, you already have 60% of your home losses from a year ago. You're 6-3 on the road. Okay, we kind of had concerns about that last year. Like, all right, can we win on the road? And then you're 7-3 in your last 10. Here's my biggest concern from this team now to, let's say, the totality of last year's season. And I can't believe I'm even making this point because I just don't think it should be this way, but unfortunately it is. Last year, I could tell you with 90% certainty what we were going to get from this team. You were going to get a good to great to elite defensive performance. You're probably never going to get worse than good. And a lot of times you're never getting worse than great. You're going to get an offense that, sure, it looks stagnant. It didn't have shooters. You look to Donovan Mitchell to bail you out. That's what you were going to get 90% certainty. You were going to get guys 90% of the time who I felt like played pretty hard. They played with, effort. The morale of the team was high. They wanted to win for one another. I'm not saying that that's the case this year, but when I look at all that from last year, great defense, lacking shooters on the outside, really no spacing, but you could still get the job done on the interior. Donovan Mitchell could carry you in the fourth quarter, which we complained about, which I think is a valid complaint to this day. When I look at this team, we're 7-3 in our last 10 games, and when we look terrible, it feels like it's something different every single time we look terrible. Sometimes the defense looks trash. The rotations are terrible. You're doing wrong things with screens. You're going to a zone. I can't figure it out sometimes. On the offensive side of the ball, it's the same way. I'm like, well, the turnovers are terrible. We're not even in offensive sets. Feels like guys are calling their own plays. I feel like Niang, is driving to the hole and laying something up off the glass, trying a 10, 14-foot floater when all he should be doing is standing in the corner. That's my biggest reservation so far through 20 games. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but isn't that just like the Browns? In the regards that it seems like we get one or the other. We either get a good offense or good defensive week. It's never both at the same time.
I agree with I get your sentiment there, but that felt like more like last year Browns for me is what I'm describing now. But sure. my sentiment is that at least with the Browns, I know the issues. I know that the injuries are the primary issue, and you're on a fourth string quarterback and a second and third string running back. Like, I know the issues there, and I understand the Cavs have injury issues too. But it's like, every time I see something good, like you said, Logan, as far as the negatives, I feel like the negatives, we keep rolling the negative aspects out there. And when we hit a good piece, a good stride, it's like that just totally disappears. Like the Craig Porter Jr. misuse these last 3 games has been utterly criminal behavior. That's pretty much my issue. Like, I can't come on here and be like, okay, if we shore up this one issue on defense, we're going to start winning some of these games. I have no idea what the solution is through 20 games so far. Justin, what am I missing?
I'm going to be blunt. I think that there is, and this isn't fair to say that it's all one thing, but I think explicitly as the resident Darius Garland fan here, it's Darius Garland. 100%. This slow start, this bad start has been all on him. Jeff put it out a couple days ago. The money that he is making, the contract that he just signed last year, and not last year. I'm sorry. This past offseason or two?
It was 2 off seasons technical, but this is the first year the money's kicked in.
Right. And so last year you got a good season out of DG. It's not necessarily an improvement. It is kind of the consistency of what he did the year before Donovan came in. And it's a good year, and then you come into this year and it's just awful. It's not good. As the resident DG guy here, The scoring isn't nearly as good. The passing is nowhere near as good as it's been. And the turnovers, awful. Disgusting. Want to throw up every time he has one of them. I want to throw the remote through the screen. I can't even with our group chat because I'll watch Logan rip off another DG turnover and I'll want to be like, I get it, Logan. I get it. He turned the ball over. So you want me to come through the phone and strangle you? Because I'll do it. I'll do it.
I really do have a turnover counter in our group chat during the game.
But listen.
We shouldn't have to.
It's evident that when Garland plays a clean, it doesn't even have to be a great game by him or even a good game by him. A clean game where, yes, I understand he's probably going to turn the ball over at least 3 times in one game. If that was the maximum, we'd probably have 3-4 more wins. Maybe not a whole lot more wins, but 3 or 4 where if you don't give up possessions in crucial times, there's one game we can go back to where both him and Evan in 2 back-to-back possessions of great defensive possessions.
Game,
we go and we turn the ball over for no good reason. Even Evan's turnover numbers are
I feel like we lost
surprisingly
a game like that too.
Right. Not to talk about Evan too much because I think he's having a good season and whatnot. His turnovers are up. I think the turnovers in general for this team are through the roof. And it starts with Darius. Donovan's not an amazing passer. He's not the guy who's going to drive in and really find those kind of sneaky passes like DG does, or even when he's on the drive at half court finding guys. But to put it all together, DG does not look like DG the PG or All-Star Gar. He looks like year 1, year 2, Darius Garland, where he's tentative. He's not feeling it as much. And I think in recent, not recently, but in a couple games ago, he looked a little bit like that DG who had the swagger, who had the, I'm going to pull up, I'm going to hit it, I'm going to do a little dance afterwards. I haven't seen a whole lot of that this year. And, the one game where him and Donovan got together afterwards, I was like, man, I really felt like that was kind of a turning point. And then what was the loss that we had after that? Huh? Is it not the Portland loss?
Yeah,
it is the Portland loss. It is the Portland loss.
Yep.
And so, it's like, man, what do we need to do to get Garland back there? Because if he's not there, you're talking about one of 2 things. You either got to ship Garland out so that you can get the buy back for Donovan, or you set Donovan out so you can get the buy back for Darius. I don't want either of those things, but as of right now, that's what it looks like. That's what it seems like. And yeah, I know people are going to go out there and say, hey, these are good stats. Hey, I'm here to tell you, I don't give a fuck about his stats. I give a shit about how he looks on the court, how he actually presents himself as not just Darius Garland, but hey, leader of this team, a leader of this team. Go out there and get your team going, because I haven't seen that once this year from him. I've seen it from Donovan Mitchell, and I've seen it from guys like Max Strus. I haven't seen it from Darius Garland.
Now, Justin, correct me if I'm wrong. This isn't you just hounding on DG. This is you being disappointed with DG, because
I have expectations for the dude. The dude should be an all-star every year. And no, last year he's not an all-star. Hey, that's a question of him, maybe getting snubbed. This year, I'm not even talking about him being the 3rd guy on this team, because right now, Evan Mobley, Max Strus, those guys are carrying more weight on their shoulders than what Darius is. And it's pathetic and it's upsetting. And as the resident Darius Garland guy, it makes me sick to be sitting here and talking about him in this way, because I know he can do better. I've seen it. I know it's there. And having these expectations, having these kind of thoughts, it's not wrong. It's not wrong for me to be upset. It's not wrong for me to question him. It's not wrong for me to go out there and say, hey, you need to be better as a player, as a leader on this team, as the number 2 guy. And that's just it.
And you agreed with me beginning of the season. I said Donovan Mitchell is the best player on this team, but for this team to get to the rank, to the heights it wants to be, is DG has to be the one running the offense, the one running the show. Right? And so far we haven't seen it. It's there, like you said, doesn't mean we can't address it. Everyone else can sit there and be happy-go-lucky and say the Cavaliers are fine when they're up 14 in Portland and then lose by 12.
I
hate
that Darius has continued 2 years in a row. He starts off the season, he plays the first game, boom, gets hurt. And then it's this continuous nagging of like, is he hurt? Is he dealing with something? Blah, 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 blah. Like he needs, and this is, again, no one can fix this problem except for him. He's the only one who can go out, because otherwise other people are going to have to make up for his mistakes. And you can see it on Donovan's face sometimes. It's not going great. It's clear that it's not going great. I got the Chris Fedor text messages, and in his text message, I could read it verbatim that he's like, yeah, that the atmosphere in here is different from last year. I can pull it up here. It's but the vibe around the team is just different this season. And this is a critical stretch coming up, playing Orlando twice, Miami, and then Boston twice. Ooh. And there's other things in there that I could throw in about Strus saying he doesn't know what the offense or what we can do about the offense. And Niang saying that he's not worried. You know, there's a lot of conflicting messages right now, people. This is the Cavs season. We're 20 games in. I told you guys I wouldn't overreact 10 games in. But, hey, sitting at 20 games, we're at 500 right now. And, again, the team still doesn't know. Your own beat writers are telling you they don't know what the atmosphere is in the locker room, and they don't really know what this team can do. Players on this team don't really know what they can do to improve the offense and improve certain aspects of the game. These are conversations that need to be had.
Well, honestly, immaculate points, Justin, because I think that if you had to, bottle it down into one point right there, I think, that's probably the most likely scenario. Darius Garland being better. And interestingly enough, the two things I took away from that is Darius Garland being an all-star. Yes, that should be like a clear-cut guarantee. If you're making top 10 point guard money, you should be in the conversation for all-star year in and year out. You're not even close to that at this moment. Number two, Let's think about this, Justin. What did you say early on in that big rant, which I absolutely loved? You said if DG had 2 or 3 turnovers in some of these games, he's had more, we probably have 3 or 4 more wins. 3 or 4 more wins puts us in as the same record as Milwaukee. Basically, you're at the 3 seed instead of the 8 seed.
And we ain't crying about anything.
If you're 14-6, you're fine. You've been really good through 20 games. You've only dropped 6 of them, and I know that 6 and 9 isn't a huge difference. But like I said, when it's how we're losing versus when we actually lose versus the games that we win, I still don't feel good about. There's a lot going on. So 20 games in, you're 11-9, and I really want to get into this because I think that it might be a little bit premature, but I think this stretch of games is really going to kind of dictate the rest of our predictions for the whole season. I think if you're good through these 2 and maybe even the next 4 games, I think that you might have a chance to end up, coming out on top as far as our season-long predictions. But we still have Justin on top, looking good, 9-11. Well, looking good for us, not looking good as far as, overall record, but kind of a weird week because of the play-in tournament and the stuff going on in Vegas, and then we have some time off. We're going to have considerable rest kind of for these next 2 games coming up, which I'm not opposed to. It's not. I don't think that that's been something to hide behind. Like, yeah, we've had injuries. Yeah, we've had guys who don't look good because maybe they're dealing with stuff. So Justin's 9-11. I'm 8-12. Logan is 7-13. Really nothing to write home about as far as us as a trio.
We've never been this bad in our 3rd season of this. We have never all been under 500 this late in the season.
Nope. And it's 20 games. People are like, oh yeah, I'll still call it a young NBA season because it absolutely is. And because really the NBA season doesn't start for me until after the All-Star break. And that's about, 55, 60 games in because the NBA doesn't like putting the midseason thing in the middle of the middle of the season. So that never made any sense to me, but whatever. And I'm saying from post All-Star break all the way up into the playoff run, because, the playoffs take 2-3 months on their own. That's the bulk of the NBA season, but you're still a quarter of the way through the year. You only play 82 games and we're already through 20 of them. So Justin, we're playing the Magic Wednesday. So a lot of rest in between these games.
Screw this game.
And this
game
is like the hottest team in the league right now?
This is quite literally, I don't know how to put it for this prediction and this Magic team. They are quite literally the Utah Jazz of last year because I have no effing clue how they are this good.
Talent, man.
Logan, I understand that.
I like their roster build.
This is the same thing people thought about Utah. last year people were like, "Oh man, Utah's got a pretty nice roster," and then they came back down to earth. And this is my thing.
This is true. This is true.
Is the Magic going to come down back to earth against the Cavs? Probably not, because that's just how the season's been going. Do I really want to just say Cavs so we can build some momentum? Ooh. Yeah, I do. I'm looking at this team. I'm looking at their stats. They don't do anything particularly well, except in the last 9 games, they've scored like 110 some points. That's ridiculous. And our defense has been awful. Yep. So, everything tells me to pick the Magic, and I just look at my thing. Cavs. When was the last time I picked a different team, Jeff? The Sixers, and guess what? I was wrong. Oh, the Nuggets, I was wrong. Great, Cavs. Because I guess I can only predict the Cavs winning. So Cavs. Christ.
So I'm going to do the snake wraparound here because of things we've talked about earlier in this episode. I just don't think we're that good at home. But I think we win this game in Miami.
There's nothing about my prediction that is statistic driven, that is coaching driven, that is anything driven other than a gut feeling that I just think the Cavs get it done against the Magic.
So we got 2 gut feelings, and we got me being here's the thing. If I just could take the outcomes out of it, I would bet decent sums that we split these games. I can't really tell you how it's going to happen. And because here's the thing. And I think that what Justin has said, what Logan has said, I think that even though you're only 20 games into the year, I think you have people in the locker room who kind of like sense the urgency. Like if this team goes to 11 and 11, excuse me, and then you have to play Boston 2 times in a row, I just don't think it's feasible. So these next 4 games, we're only predicting 2, give me 2-2. And give me 1 out of the 2 losses, like a loss I can be proud and happy about, like, yes, we played good, they played better, hat tip, go on with your life. That is all I'm asking for. You know, you really should be kicking it into gear and winning 3 of these games. I don't think we got it in us right now.
I'm not taking the Cavs. I don't like us in Miami. I never have liked us in Miami. They came into our court and bitched us, even though, yeah, sure. Okay, that's the only thing. I said last week I can forgive the loss to Miami. I tend to forget that they didn't even have Bam Adebayo. They didn't even have like some of their guys too. And I get it. We were tired. We were road weary. I totally get that. I don't like us in Miami. I never have. I know we've been winning there a little bit lately, but no, not right now. Not with the current mindset of this team. I can't see it. Go ahead, Justin. Say it, Cavs. Go ahead, Justin.
This is just something else. I mean, I despise the Heat team in general. Like, they are just the most weirdly put together roster year in and year out, and yet somehow Jimmy Buckets has put this team in a different dimension. And I despise it. I honestly do. It's just one of those teams that I look at our matchup against them, and I'm like, man, top to bottom, I like our chances. No, I'm going Cavs, but man, the reason I gotta
this
go.
This dude
Cavs,
went through hell just to say Cavs twice.
Listen, I can't predict apparently I can't win with the other team winning, so it's at this point the rest of this thing should just be Cavs down for me. You can just go ahead and do that for the rest of the 60-some games we have, but Miami, I feel like they're so fraudulent at times, and then at others they're making the Bucks or they're making the Celtics look like a comparable team to them. So I don't know. They're kind of one of those teams I think they play up and down to the level of their opponents, and I feel like that's why the Cavs can sneak one away against them. But I agree with Jeff. I think it's more than likely we split one of those games. I would personally put it on Miami more than Orlando, but that's what it is.
This is
Jeff,
a rare.
Do you have the old predictions from the last 2 years? Look how much red is on our damn graph.
So much
red. That is,
and I'm the only person who's done a personalized guarantee, and I've already lost it.
I'm gonna be honest.
I can't personalize guarantee anything. The only thing I wish I could personalize guarantee is Jay Biggerstaff the hell out of Cleveland. I can't. I'm done with it.
Whoa, fire!
Hey man.
I know we're wrapping up the episode, but jeez.
Here's my thing. I
know he was the finalist for Coach of the Month. Man, shut up.
This is last year.
Oh, it looks very similar to this year. How I started off very well, and
Look at all of us with 50 wins.
We were
last year.
crazy. Like that's what I'm saying. This team is doing something wrong because we're not this stupid, guys. We're not this.
Like, look at how close this was.
And what was our record last year? I mean, that kind of just goes back to Logan's point about like we could, and Logan and Jeff's point about like Jeff knowing that more often than not we're going to put up a good defensive game against teams, and then Logan just like in general, I think he has that knowledge and has that feel for how other teams are in the league. But just in general, like all of us together, and yeah, we're kind of close in this year's predictions.
It's kind of
as
tough
well,
not to be close.
But you look at the record, and it's like, man,
all under 500.
Well, I'll tell you, I think
it's
only 2 games, so it's like I think it's a little bit more likely to happen. But this is a rare. We are all different.
Yeah,
we have 3 different results here.
Can only predict
and I think they're all fine. Like I was saying, like I think they're all fine. Like if you come out winning one of these 2 games, if you go Justin's route and go 2 for 2, it's going to be ecstatic. Like I'm thinking we're back up if we go 2-0. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So all right, let's wrap it up here. Good episode. Absolutely loved it. I think great points were made. We got final thoughts. Do we have words of wisdom to this locker room? Before we go into this Orlando game on the 6th.
I don't got the sign or nothing, but I wish people would hopefully understand this reference.
Man's is using props. He's using fake props. He's using sunglasses. The haircut is on 10. Logan?
If we lose, JB Bickerstaff will be gone.
You think if we lose to Orlando, it'll be gone?
That goes my belief.
If we go to 11-11 with Boston coming up, bye-bye. I'm sorry. I'm already done with it, and I hate it because I was such a fan of JB Bickerstaff. I was, and it was easy to be a fan when we're an up-and-coming team, but it's not there anymore, boys. I'm sorry. I'm living with Luke Walton on my bench to take over this team.
Calm down. We'll find someone.
I get it. We're at 40 minutes. We're not going to go into it right now, but just so everybody knows out there, I may look like an idiot down the road, and I get it. He was a finalist, but let's look at the comments on that frickin' post of him being a finalist for Coach of the Month, and it's pretty much already being like everyone's drunk or high or on some or insane in the head to actually vote Jay Vickers as a finalist. This guy can't coach. And I'm sorry. I'm rambling now. I'm done with it. If he can prove me wrong, he can prove me wrong, but I'm done with him.
Well, fair enough.
Words of wisdom.
Words of wisdom is just don't I'm just going to keep it really pretty simple. Like just don't do stupid stuff. Like limit the turnovers.
JB does stupid stuff though. So that's not possible.
I think we could circumvent his stupidity though. I'm still on that level. Like don't turn the ball over. Don't take bad shots. Don't pull up from 35 feet in transition, Donovan, and go on with your life. Like this is like you're not Steph. Nobody is. Only Steph. Here's my thing though. Just don't do anything stupid. And if you do something, hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed. Comment down below. What did we miss in this episode? What are we delusional about? What did we hit, the nail right on the head with? And we'll be back, whether it's a live stream, whether it's a Logan short, whether it's, me and Justin complaining about the Browns, we will be here on the Cleveland Pulse. And always, we appreciate you being the pulse of it all.